So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution. Gaza and the intolerable.
Speaking on July 29th, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the UK would recognize the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly if the Israeli government does not take substantial steps to end the horrific situation in Gaza. This was also stated by UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy ahead of the International United Nations Conference.
I just keep going back, and other people too, even the enemy.
Our goal remains a safe and secure Israel alongside a viable and sovereign Palestinian state. But right now, that goal is under pressure like never before. I've always said that we will recognise a Palestinian state as a contribution to a proper peace process at the moment of maximum impact for the two-state solution. With that solution now under threat, this is the moment to act. So today, as part of this process towards peace, I can confirm the UK will recognise the State of Palestine by the United Nations General Assembly in September, unless the Israeli government takes substantive steps to end the appalling situation in Gaza, agree to a ceasefire, and commit to a long-term sustainable peace, reviving the prospect of a two-state solution. And this includes allowing the UN to restart the supply of aid and making clear that there will be no annexations in the West Bank. Meanwhile, our message to the terrorists of Hamas is unchanged and unequivocal. They must immediately release all of the hostages, sign up to a ceasefire, disarm, and accept that they will play no part in the government of Gaza. And we'll make an assessment in September on how far the parties have met these steps. But no one should have a veto over our decision. So this is the way forward. We will keep working with all our international partners to end the suffering, get aid flooding into Gaza, and deliver a more stable future for the Middle East. Because I know that is what the British people desperately want to see. The reason we have announced this in the way we have in relation to the General Assembly in September is precisely because I want to ensure that this plays a part in changing the conditions on the ground. And making sure that that aid gets in, making sure that there is hope of a two-state solution for the future. The only way to bring this humanitarian crisis to an end is through a long-term settlement. So we are supporting the US, Egyptian and Qatari efforts to secure a vital ceasefire. That ceasefire must be sustainable, and it must lead to a wider peace plan, which we're developing with our international partners. This plan will deliver security and proper governance in Gaza.
Well, thank you, Chair. We gather today at a dark moment 660 days since the Israeli hostages were first cruelly taken by Hamas terrorists. There is no possible justification for this suffering and only a clear duty that we help to bring it to an end. The devastation in Gaza is heartbreaking. Children are starving, and Israel's drip feeding of aid has horrified the world. Colleagues, our history means that Britain bears a special burden of responsibility to support the two-state solution. We restored funding to UNRWA. We suspended arms exports that could be used in Gaza. We provided tens of millions of pounds in humanitarian assistance. We signed a landmark agreement with the Palestinian Authority, and we stood up for the independence of the international courts. We have delivered 3 sanctions packages on violent settlers, and we suspended trade negotiations with the Israeli government, and we sanctioned far-right Israeli ministers for incitement. Yet, dear friends, the situation on the ground continues to worsen, and the two-state solution is in peril. The Netanyahu government's rejection of a two-state solution is wrong. It's wrong morally and it's wrong strategically. It harms the interests of the Israeli people, closing off the only path to a just and lasting peace. And that is why we are determined to protect the viability of a two-state solution. And so it is with the hand of history on our shoulders that His Majesty's government therefore intends to recognize the State of Palestine when the UN General Assembly gathers in September here in New York. We will do this unless the Israeli government acts to end the appalling situation in Gaza, ends its military campaign, and commits to a long, sustainable peace based on a two-state solution. Our demands on Hamas also remain absolute and unwavering. It must now be resolved. Britain is ready to play its full and historic part. Thank you very much.
In response to the UK's move, the Israeli Foreign Ministry stated that recognizing a Palestinian state is a reward for Hamas and would undermine efforts to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza. This is because if the UK takes action, it would reflect Israel's growing isolation regarding its conduct in the war against Hamas in Gaza, where a humanitarian disaster has unfolded and the number of Palestinian deaths has exceeded 60,000. U.S. President Donald Trump stated that he did not discuss the UK's plans during talks with Prime Minister Starmer in Scotland earlier this week. At the time, he told reporters that he didn't mind if the UK recognized the State of Palestine. However, on July 29th, President Trump said aboard Air Force One that he did not think Hamas should be rewarded with the recognition of Palestinian independence.
Can we ask about that, please? On Gaza, Sir Keir Starmer has just announced the UK will recognise Palestinian sovereignty in September if Israel does not commit to a ceasefire, ease the suffering in Gaza, and commit to a long-term solution that would deliver the two-state solution in the Middle East. Did you know that was coming?
No, we never discussed it, surprisingly. It was never really discussed. Maybe a little bit at the news conference, but he was sort of discussing it with you. We never did discuss it. And we have no view on that. We're going to get a lot of money to the area so they can get some food. He's going to also. I think the European Union is going to put up money too for food. And hopefully it's going to be properly distributed. And it will be. I think it will be. We have some pretty good response on people for the distribution of the food.
I mean, is there any use at all in pressuring Israel now to come to some sort of longer-term solution?
Well, you could make the case that you're rewarding people, that you're rewarding Hamas if you do that, and I don't think they should be rewarded. So I'm not in that camp, to be honest. We'll let you know where we are in, but I am not in that camp.
Mr. President,
because if you do that, you really are rewarding Hamas.
Speaking alongside King Abdullah of Jordan at the Federal Chancellery in Berlin, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz stated that his government currently will not recognize a Palestinian state because such a move is not the right step.
We are convinced that a negotiated two-state solution remains the best chance of achieving this goal one day. However, we do not currently consider the recognition of a Palestinian state to be the right step. It may be one of the last steps on the path to realizing a two-state solution. The German government, therefore, has no plans to recognize a Palestinian state in the near future.
Palästinensischen Staat anzuerkennen.
Recently, the foreign ministers of 28 countries, including several European ones, has issued and released a statement.
Secondly, Israel must quickly and decisively improve the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza. It must provide the suffering civilian population with humane and urgently needed supplies. We therefore welcome the first steps taken by the Israeli government and Prime Minister Netanyahu. I would also like to expressly add that there must be no further expulsions and no further steps towards annexation of the West Bank. I am in close contact with the Israeli Prime Minister on this matter. On the German side, we are also coordinating with the United States of America and the states in the region. As we stand here, there are currently two A400M Airbus military transport aircraft in the air on their way to Jordan, where they will be equipped and refueled so that they can fly the relevant missions from the weekend at the latest, possibly even as early as tomorrow.
Across political, economic, and humanitarian spheres, Israel's war on Gaza must stop. The unfolding humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza has reached unspeakable levels. The images of starving children in Gaza have outraged people around the world. It is a stain on our shared humanity to allow this to continue.
The UK's warning came after a humanitarian organization stated that the worst-case scenario of famine is unfolding and immediate action is needed to prevent widespread casualties. The Palestinian Authority declared that over 60,000 Palestinians have been killed due to Israel's attack on the Gaza Strip. The UK's decision has left Israel increasingly isolated on the international stage, as many countries have called for Israel to allow unrestricted aid into the Gaza Strip. However, the administration of President Donald Trump, Israel's closest and most influential ally, has made it clear that it has no intention of joining other countries in recognizing the State of Palestine in the near future. Since returning to power in January, Trump has remained vague about whether Washington would support a Palestinian state.